Hey guys, today I'll be testing one of the nicest mid-range hybrid IEMs that I've tested as of late. It's feature-packed to its teeth, it has plenty of accessories, free tuning switches and swappable audio jacks, and you don't see that very often nowadays. It's called FiiO FH5S and it goes for 259 bucks. As usual, I'll be doing plenty of measurements. I'll be comparing them with their bigger sibling FH7, and of course I'll leave a ton of sound impressions. So let's get it started. FH5S employs a so-called pre-shell acoustic design technology that was inspired by supercars. Their aluminum-magnesium alloy shell, body and front covers are fixed together at 3 points to greatly reduce excess resonance and distortion. The shell itself looks pretty much the same to that of FH7, with a slight redesign to improve ergonomics and comfort in long listening sessions. Instead of drilling holes on that metallic shell, they created a semi-open design, moving excessive air outside of the shell, seriously boosting comfort levels and, most importantly, their soundstaging capabilities. The outer mesh and the fins around it are creating a stunning Dragon scale-like look, highlighting a new design philosophy for the FH line. As for the tech inside them, FiiO moved to a brand new architecture consisting of 2 beryllium-coated dynamic drivers and of 2 balanced armatures. Replacing the balanced armature used for mid-frequencies in the original FH5, the newest dynamic driver provides a better vocal performance and a bigger soundstage to its predecessor. Those beryllium-coated drivers are being pushed by a powerful 1.5 Tesla magnet that should improve transit response and control. I must add that driver size is impressive. 12mm for the bass and 6mm for the mid-range are some of the biggest drivers I've seen in IEMs. The whole treble area is being reproduced by a time-tested Knowles dual balanced armature driver. They placed it directly in the sound tube, being as close as possible to the ear, fully preserving treble extension to the top octave. By far, the coolest thing that FiiO incorporated are those 3 tiny adjustment switches that are working directly with the electronic crossover, so you can fine-tune its bass, mid-range and treble output. Okay guys, let's check how they actually sound. I'll start by saying that these don't sound like entry to mid-level IEMs like at all. So you can forget about that boring and lifeless and thin sound of Chi-Fi IEM. So forget about a lack of mid-range presence, of body, of knowledge unit IEMs, and of course forget about a lack of technicalities, of transparency and detail retrieval of those blown IEMs. So FH5S are considerably more balanced top to bottom, so you can expect a higher degree of technicalities. There is plenty of micro details in this one, and of course they are infusing some soul, some warmth in that mid-range, and of course punch, boldness and slam in that bass. Personally, I don't find them extremely engaging in the stock form. So nothing is really missing from my music, but nothing is standing out. There is a good amount of bass. I feel that the vocal performance is amazing, so it fully preserves the human pitch. And there is a higher presence in the treble, so there is slightly more information in the treble that could pose a slight problem in long listening sessions. Honestly, I would never touch that treble switch ever again, because I find it a little bit elevated by a few dB, by around 4 dB. So it's slightly higher compared to FiiO FH7, slightly higher compared to FA9, so of course I will never touch that switch again. The amount of micro details and transparency and cleanness that was coming out of them was really quite surprising. And honestly, I find them pretty much on the same level with their top dogs, FiiO FH7, as I find them equally transparent and clean sounding. A pleasant surprise was hearing a bigger sound compared to other entry to mid-level IEMs like Eco OH10, Mezerite Solo and Moondrop Starfield. Moving on to power requirements, at around 106 dB per 1 mW of power, these are not the most sensitive IEMs, so prepare to use some dedicated electronics like portable DAPs, DAC amps, Bluetooth dongles and so on, because smartphones just wouldn't cut it. So I tried them out of my smartphone, out of my tablet and laptop, and I was almost maxed out, and a lack of volume wasn't really a problem for me, but a lack of dynamics and bass slam was a serious concern for me. So they worked much better out of Bluetooth dongles like QDLX 5K, like FiiO BTR5. They worked even great out of those small USB-C dongles like Shinling UP1, Shinling UP2. And of course, portable DAC amps like FiiO Q5TC works just outstanding. Portable DAPs, higher tiered portable DAPs like FiiO M15, M11 Plus, Shinling M6 worked just outstanding. So there is just a higher degree of detail. They sounded bigger, airier, smoother in a way. I would personally stay away out of those THX and NFC amplifiers because they need just a little bit of warmth in the mid-range and smoothness, and those amplifiers aren't providing that. Moving on to transit response, my favorite part. These are quite impressive when it comes to speed, fast decays, so they sound quite nimble, all that. And that shouldn't come as a surprise because most hybrid, well-engineered hybrid IEMs are sounding like this. However, when it comes to sheer bass slam and impact, when it comes to all those punches, they aren't that impressive in this department. So there is a decent amount of kick in the bass, so there is plenty of air traveling around. The soundstage is quite impressive, so you can hear those layers pretty defined. You can hear that depth impressive. There is plenty of air traveling around, but there is not that much of a kick and slam in the bass. So I wanted just a little bit more oomph, a little bit more fire in my music. That's why I engaged that bass switch to on position. And boy, what a big change, a very big change. So the whole bass area, so the sub bass and mid bass, even the mid range goes up by about 4 dB. And that improves the overall tonality of this IEM. So they sound much more engaging, much punchier. So the slam in the bass is back. They sound pretty much like FH7 to a smaller degree. So much nicer in here. Even the treble area isn't that a problem anymore because the bass goes almost on the same level with the treble. And of course that makes them a lot more cohesive, more natural sounding in a way. If you love your bass fast and impactful, I strongly suggest putting the bass switch to on position, unleashing the Kraken and unlocking the fullest potential. Everything I wanted FH5S to be in the stock form is cured by a single switch. As for Soundstage, just picture this. So they have two huge dynamic drivers that are taking care of their bass and mid-range, and of course that works as a big soundstage boost. So there is plenty of air traveling around, so starting with sub-bass and finishing with the top octave. And that was certainly the case with the FiiO FH5S. Secondly, their semi-open design, so is moving excessive air outside of their shell, of that nasty energy, nasty ringing and all that bad stuff. It's also moved outside of their shell, and that works as again as a big soundstage boost. So they are sounding as open, as wide and as deep as any other top tier high-end IEM, and that is not an exaggeration from my part. With that bass boost engaged, that again works as a small soundstage boost because most of the air is actually traveling in the bass and not in other territories, in other frequencies. I find them pretty much on the same level with the FiiO FH7, with FiiO FH9, with Meze Rai Penta, with Hebe Crystal 6, with many other top tier high-end IEMs. So their soundstaging capabilities are really not worthy, and if you never tried something outside of affordable Chi-Fi, I think right now is the time for a leap of faith, as FiiO FH5S are something else entirely. When it comes to detail retrieval and transparency, I can say that I never found them lacking in this department. All the usual suspects were here, so all those micro details, all those mastering errors, everything that I wanted from my music was really present. Maybe they weren't exactly as pinpoint accurate, pinpoint precise as an all armature IEM like FiiO FH9 or Hebe Crystal 6, but they were very, very close to a point of guessing which is which on several tracks, on several occasions. So I've tried those beryllium coated drivers already multiple times on other IEMs, and of course those Knowles balanced armatures as well. And generally speaking, such drivers are slightly more detailed, more clean sounding compared to regular cellulose or polymer drivers found in entry to mid-level designs. They were clean sounding for the most part, and the upper region was shining a little bit brighter with a higher focus on detail retrieval. So they sounded pretty much on the same level with the FiiO FH7 in this department, and much clearer, much more detailed compared to Mesa Rise Solo, to Eco OH10 and to Moondrop Starfield. Their leading edges were clear, all the contours were defined, I never experienced muddiness, and I had all the signs of a highly detailed and transparent sounding IEMs. Moving on to frequency response, they have a really extended and linear type of bass, started strong even from 20 Hz. So if you ever heard their FH7 IEMs, then FH5S goes pretty much into the same direction. So there is as much sub bass and as much mid bass as you could possibly desire. All my electronica tunes and rock tunes sounded really impactful, hard slamming, toy tapping all the time, and I really didn't want anything more from my music. So it's safe to say that bass is pretty much the best part of FH5S when it comes to frequency response. In terms of mid-range, adding that 6mm dynamic driver was just an outstanding idea because I never found them thin, lifeless or boring sounding. There is plenty of naturalness to be experienced out of this IEM, and its mid-range performance is pretty much in line with the low end with the bass. Vocal performance is great, so there is plenty of boldness with male voices and some sweetness, some refinement with female voices. There is some warmth in here as well and smoothness, but not too much of it. I think just in right doses, in my opinion. Its mid-range felt linear for the most part, without putting a higher accent on anything in particular. Its mid-range boost switch didn't make that much of a difference, so please don't expect a big difference. They have a very good presence in the treble, so there is a bite, there is shimmering, there is a high level of detail retrieval, and really everything that a treble head would ever need. In their stock form, I find their treble a little bit accentuated, especially that rise at 10 kHz can be a little bit too much with some treble intensive music. However, with that bass which enabled, everything becomes at the same level basically, so I find them more natural sounding, more linear, more neutral, more cohesive in a way. Since there is already a substantial treble increase in the 10 kHz area, I strongly suggest never touching the treble switch ever again. I have also measured their performance using a mini DSP ear system, so everything from frequency response, total harmonic distortion, spectral decay, waterfall and spectrogram. I also measured the difference between all those three switches. For that, I strongly recommend checking out my full analysis in the link that I've put below. I also compared them with their bigger sibling FiiO FH7. For that, please check out my detailed comparison that I've put in the link below. Okay guys, conclusion time. While FH5S didn't impress me right away as their FH7 did, in my mind it really outperformed all other IEMs that I tried at less than $300. In all fairness, it's quite difficult disliking this particular IEM because its feature set is amazing. There is a ton of accessories included in the package. You can tune it to your liking, several headphone plugs are being provided, and most importantly, they sounded great out of the box, always striving to impress with their linear and extended frequency response, fast transients and clean undistorted sound. At $259, there is very little to nitpick, and it's my pleasure to recommend such a great sounding IEM. Okay guys, my full in-depth review can be found on my website. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it, and as usual, listen to my music, be positive, and I'll see you next time. Cheers, bye bye.